All right, April is rolling right along. I have just finished reading The Facts of the Late Arthur Jermyn and His Family. Let me double check that title because I always forget. Yes, Facts Concerning the Late Arthur Jermyn and His Family. It is a weird tale written by H.P. Lovecraft, first published in Weird Tales magazine in 1924 under the title The White Ape, which apparently H.P. Lovecraft, displeased with the renaming of his story, stated something to the effects, stated something along the lines of, if I ever titled a story The White Ape, it would not have an ape in it. So what's this one about? This one is a story of a unnamed narrator describing in short the facts of the genealogy of one Arthur Jermyn, starting with his 3 times great grandfather, who was this notable African explorer and academic. Though he's in his academic capacities, he was kind of laughed off as being a crackpot with all these bizarre theories about what happened in the African continent in prehistory. And then from there, it goes from the 3 times great grandfather just down the line with each son. There was only one surviving son to live to give the next progenitor, so that the family tree was just completely a straight line without any cousins branching off anywhere. Until he gets up to what would have been more or less present day then, Arthur Jermyn, who decides that he's going to do a little bit more investigating. He's intrigued by his family history and by his so many greats grandfather, those investigations, and he wants to look into it more. And he ends up finding more than he bargained for. And you can probably guess the twist of it already, but for those of you who don't know, the twist of it is that 3 times great grandfather, Wade Jermyn, when he came home from Africa, he brought something with him. And from that, all the other Jermyns were born. That's right, Arthur Jermyn's 3 times great grandmother was some special kind of ape taken from the heart of Africa. And this is a curious story in its structure and what came after it and what its possible influences are. To say what came after it, this idea of having this cursed or unnatural or unholy heritage is an idea that Lovecraft would deal with again and again throughout his career. He was always refining and recirculating this idea. I think the place where this shows up most prominently is in Shadow over Innsmouth. Now, most people rightly, they look at the short story Dagon, which was written a long time before Shadow over Innsmouth, all right, and say that this is where Lovecraft was working through his ideas before he got to that later novella. This one has more, just as much, if not more, to do with Shadow over Innsmouth as Dagon did. The Arthur Jermyn story, thematically, tracks almost one for one onto certain passages of Shadow over Innsmouth, dealing with the old explorers and this cursed heritage, this unnatural union between man and in this case, man and beast. In Shadow over Innsmouth, this man and old one, these fish people. And so it's just like this recirculating of ideas on Lovecraft's part, refining ideas, not being afraid to take ideas he had already explored a little bit and reuse them, perhaps in more depth, or to give them a new spin, or to add them to make the thing he's working on a bit greater, a bit grander than it otherwise would be if that were omitted from the story, if that makes sense. And then the possible influence for this one, I've just looking at some stuff. Some people have said that Edgar Rice Burroughs' Return of Tarzan, where Tarzan goes to the city of Opar, and they're the beastmen, who are the result of a union between human beings and then these certain types of apes, and they intermingle and create these ape men. Some people have said that might have been an influence on the story. Return of Tarzan came out in 1913, around that time. Arthur Jermyn, like I said, came out in 1924. So it is possible that H.P. Lovecraft read that Burroughs novel and it influenced this story a little bit, maybe. I think also the idea of an unholy union between man and beast resulting in this cursed offspring is not, it was not a new idea in Lovecraft's time, or it's not a new idea in Burroughs' time. I mean, it shows up in Greek myth quite a bit. Romulus and Remus, they weren't beast men, but they were raised by wolves. But you have the case of the Minotaur, which is perhaps the most well-known version of this type of story, where the union between man and beast results in this monster. Well, the case of Arthur Jermyn, in a little bit, is the Minotaur recognizing himself in the mirror a little bit. It's as if the Minotaur knew that we're a monster and couldn't stand for it. So there are these things that go into it before and after the story. You kind of address sort of these things that come into it before and after the story, having to do with the themes of how does the story itself function narratively. And to answer that, I gotta say it's really about the dread of something you have already assumed being true. So in this, especially if the story is titled The White Ape, but even without that title, it's not hard to guess what the twist of the story is going to be or where it is heading. Lovecraft's not exactly subtle in drawing these points of similarity between the men of the Jermyn family and any sort of animalistic or ape-like quality that he could put down on paper. So it's not like it's hidden from you, but it's not supposed to be hidden. It's planting an idea in your mind where you think, is this where it's going? And leading you down that spot so that the more and more clues are put together, the more and more you can see, oh no, that's what happened. And it's either going to put you in this position of you're not going to be impressed. You're just like, I saw it coming, whatever. Or the idea, like I say, that unnatural union between man and beast, the story is capitalizing on that idea being repulsive, naturally repulsive to a person's mind. That they go, oh, gross. I'm not going to pull up any ready examples here, but horror stories like to do this, even in the modern day, is take something that is morally, culturally taboo, just completely abhorrent and repugnant. And that's the thing a lot of those old Greek stories were getting at too. And this one's the case of Arthur Jermyn's story is giving you plenty of real estate. Just let that sit in your mind and fester and build. And like I say, all these clues being put together, leading to this inevitable conclusion. I can see, or a certain person reading this would be turning it over, and then every page, every passage, hoping it was not the case, that there's actually some other thing coming in at the end to divert it away, whatever that would be. Even if it was something else unsavory, something less unsavory than what it actually is. I gotta say, on Lovecraft stories, it's generally difficult for me to read a Lovecraft story the first time. I usually have to read it perhaps 2 or 3 times before I really start to appreciate it. And even then, sometimes that second or third read, I appreciate it less than I had the first time. I'm looking at you, Pickman's model. But this one, if someone were going to read Lovecraft for the first time, I might give them this one. It's a bit dry. It's a bit weird narratively. That people generally don't write stories like this anymore. That's just this bird's eye view of this long passage of time. That's generally not done. But this, I think, would be a good place to start because it's easy to read, it's easy to grasp. The horror element is at the forefront. Like I say, it's not in your face, but it is at the forefront. You're not going to be left scratching your head like, what was he trying to get at? Also, it just moves. It's not super long. If someone were going to read Lovecraft for the first time, I might give them this. It's got everything in a Lovecraft story that there should be without hitting you over the head with fishmen and weird names and just complex jargon that you can't grasp or get a hold of. This would be a good place to start. But anyways, I've come about to the end of all I have to say about that. April's rolling on. I'll be rolling on to the end of the month. And if you want to participate, it's really easy. Just find a book or a story or a movie or anything you really want that has to do with apes and talk about it. It's just as easy as that. But that's all I have to say about that. So I'll talk to you later.